Welcome to The Final Edit, a podcast brought to you by Maison, a private network for 7 to 9 figure female founders where women redefine success, legacy, and influence.
We're your hosts, Maritza, Tobon, and Nieves. We're co-founders, mothers, and builders behind a billion-dollar vision.
These conversations are with leading founders who are shaping the industry and the future as they build it.
Welcome to The Final Edit. Welcome to another episode of The Final Edit. Today, we are peeling back the curtain on Maison and what it has taken to build a private network for women at the top and what comes next. The misconception is that Maison started with your typical pitch deck and that we had all this funding, etc., when really it came from a place of just wanting to create a space for deeper connection, real conversations, and something that where we were in our own journey as entrepreneurs and founders, we were not seeing in the space. So I am actually going to kick this off by asking Hannah what her version of the Maison origin story is.
Ooh, okay, so we're going back to 2022. This was May of 2022. And I had got invited to go on a leadership summit at Necker Island, which, if you're familiar, is Richard Branson's island. And I said this so many times, but it completely changed my entire life. And so while I was there, Richard was talking about the elders, and I can share this photo in the show notes, but he talked about how he invites the most influential people in the world to his island to ideate on world hunger and, big world problems. And just hearing his story on how he's built this conglomerate of brands, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, well, wait, there's something there. And at this point, I'd already built H&N House, had the consulting firm, et cetera. But I was like, there's something missing. And then so fast forward a year later, that's when I had the miscarriage. And at that point, I've invested, personally speaking, hundreds of thousands of dollars in mentorship, masterminds, things like that. But at that point, when I had the miscarriage and I was actually at a mastermind retreat at the time and I was away from my home, I felt so alone. And I remember thinking of well, what am I doing this for? What is the intent? Because I feel I was really good at impacting people and growing their businesses, but that's where where it stopped. You know what I mean? There was no bigger purpose, mission and vision. And so at that point, it was the light bulb that had went off because I was I started to not feel seen in a lot of communities out there, right? There's a lot of great communities for corporate women. There's a lot of networks out there for bros in marketing and tech, et cetera. I just didn't feel seen in them because the conversations were either solely about money and lacked, number one, intimacy, connection, depth, or they were not having the conversations around the duality of being a high-performing woman who's running a company of this, magnitude, but also a mom, a wife. Yeah. And so I was
and a woman that had just gone through something so rocking,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, miscarriage will really rock you. And so that was the start. And I remember I had brought that to you in conversation of okay, this is what I'm thinking about. And I remember that I was also pregnant at the time. And then AI was on the scene, online world. And I feel this is where your expertise and your vision was the perfect marriage to the two.
Because Maison originally, was almost Thrive 2.0, or what the next evolution of that was going to be. And Thrive, by the way, was a mastermind that Hannah ran for many, many years. And so it was this next version of it. But it was still the piece of look at where we are now in our careers and the things that we're going through, and every mastermind and every program, right? It's structured and it's in a way for you to check a box, right? And the real conversations aren't really happening, right? It's just about building. People don't feel safe and comfortable to share. And I was I don't know, that it's another mastermind. I think that we need to reinvent this whole concept. And with technology, we could really do something here where we're leveraging AI, to help solve a problem that we already know that our target our target member is facing, which is, visibility and just like a quicker way to gain that visibility. And this is
Yep.
something that Hannah was already working with clients on one-to-one. And so I was like, we can build our own platform.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, even at the time, I don't think we fully had materialized the concept of like, the private network. Like we wanted it to be a speakeasy and invite only type of vibes. Right. But the model that we've fully like embraced and evolved into today wasn't even fully born yet, right? It's like we just knew like we want women to, get connected to each other. We want to build our own tool. And we're just gonna go. We're just gonna solve the problem. And that's, how we started.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting too with like building Maison is that we've done it so differently. And I don't think we talk about this enough compared to what you see online. And I don't know about you, but like I just always craved intimate environments. Like I think there's a time and a place for, 500, 1,000 person events and things like that. But I mean, I think we both share the qualities of like, we really appreciate like luxury, and like what luxury means to us is feeling seen and having intimate curated environments. And I feel like a lot of communities are just focused on volume, right? Because they're just focused on meeting those financial metrics. But we're focusing on culture, and we're
Mm-hmm.
focusing on the qualitative, which I think makes Maison so different from every other network out there. And not only, yes, we're serving an underserved market of women. So for if you're listening in, Maison is a private network for 7 to 9 figure female founders. So we have women in there that either have a 7 to 9 figure business, they've sold a company for that amount, or they have a personal net worth of that amount. So it's very specific. And it's one benchmark that we look at, but we also look at the qualities of that person. Like we ask for reference checks. We go on every single sales call with every single member that comes in. But I think like that is really what differentiates us, because we do have a vetting process, which I think a lot of other communities either overlook or they're just focused on growth.
Yeah. And I think somewhere along the line too, um, communities will sacrifice those earlier benchmarks that they hope to have for scale, which is a thing that till this day we refuse to do. And we have been in conversations and in rooms with people that are like, well, how are you gonna, hit revenue targets, and how are you gonna, grow to this amount, and blah blah blah. And everything is always so obsessed with the transactional piece of everything. And we're like, we're gonna get there. We're going to get there. It might be a slow burn, but we will get there, because we cannot jeopardize the integrity and the quality of the network, especially now that we're like post launch and we have seen what Maison has become. Like, listen to any of our member spotlight episodes, and you can hear their like first accounts too that just happen naturally from our members sharing their experience in the network. It's such a beautiful, intimate space that needs to be protected. And I think because we're so aware of that, we're able to truly create a safe environment for women. And that's important. So
Yeah, I think to piggyback off of that as well, with building something very different, I think for how we've also like positioned the brand as well. I
mhm.
think that was something that was very unique to us, and something that we didn't see in the industry, because when we started, I remember we had the conversation of, okay, we're going to grow. And we launched, for those that are listening in, we grew by literally having a deck that we had reached out to all of our personal network. We had no ads, no flashy webinars or anything along those lines. And we filled our founding member round of 20 people. I think it was like in the first 2 weeks.
Mhm.
And within that first 20 members, we had $450 million worth of spending power of these 20 women, which was just like mind blowing at the
Mhm.
time. And I think what's also really exciting is that like we built Maison with impact and the legacy first, which is really important because, we're not just focused on like, okay, how much money do you have? And like, let's just like build wealth for women, but it's also like, how do we deploy those assets into other areas that like actually serve a purpose, help other women, et cetera. And so, for example, like we built social impact into our DNA from day one. Like every event that we have has a social impact initiative. We partner with different organizations because like we also want to do good. And it's not just like a PR initiative, but I think that that is something that's very distinct that, after like, not that we're at the end of building Maison, we're literally just getting started, but after looking back at what we've done, we have built something so intentional. Like we had no social media, we had no website, no one knew our members, right? Remember, we literally built it like in silence, but that's what attracted these women so much,
Yeah,
you
yeah. There
know?
was nothing flashy about how Maison was built and marketed in its infancy, because we really wanted the concept to be understood. We knew we were introducing something new in the market. Maybe some of our members had experience with other private networks and those types of organizations, but Maison was creating also such an ecosystem within itself that we needed. It was really important that we were able to tell the Maison story one to one, like literally with each individual person, sending them the deck and going through the deck and explaining to the vision. And not everybody got it. And that's okay. And
Mhm.
I think it's also really important that you are so, and we say this all the time, but that you are so delusional and grounded in your own vision and what has been put in your soul that no one can rock you, because you're actually going to hear, no, or be questioned and face more like rejection and adversity than the percentage that you're going to hear yes. And it's important, for you to understand that that doesn't mean that the yeses aren't out there. It just means that, you haven't gotten to the right people yet. But that doesn't take away from this being, a good or a bad idea. And so we always were just very confident in what we were building and how it was going to change, the space and help empower women too, to use their influence in bigger ways, right? To also like help each other, but also help the next generation, of founders and just the community in general, because the organizations
Yeah.
that we partner with are, it's across a landscape of things, right? And it's
Mhm.
just, how do we pay it forward, and how do we use our influence and our voice to leave a lasting
Yeah.
impact in the world?
And I really love that too, because that also like ties back to how we've designed the brand and also like our event activations too. It really isn't just about like being seen and having like a flashy, like, beautiful visual, but like we also make sure that there is this element of like emotional connection, curation. Like when you come to our events, whether they're online or in person, you feel something. And I've gotten that feedback from several members who have come in where they're like, oh, you've said that, but, like, until I got in the room, I actually felt, like, the difference, and I think and I always go back to, I'm like, "What do we do? What are we doing that's so different?"
Mm-hmm.
But it really is a curation, like, we down to, like, the venues that we pick, like, you will never see us, like, caught in, like, some windowless corporate, hotel chain with those, ugly chairs and, like, the little table
Oh
cover,
my
with, like, a
gosh.
notepad, like, it's just not how we roll, and I think we're just, like, really redefining, like, what it really means to curate these, like, beautiful sensory experiences for women at this level, where they also feel really seen and heard. Like for example, like our Maison Summit, we had a woman there that was 9 months pregnant, a woman that was newly pregnant. We also had a baby there.
We had a
We
baby.
had a baby there that was 3
Little
months
Grace.
old that, her mother felt safe enough and seen enough to be like, "Okay, like, I'm in a room where I can bring my baby and also, like, grow my seven-figure business, but also, like, nurse my baby in the same room," and, like, I don't know about you, but there's not a lot of rooms like that
Mm-mm.
at all where it's actually accepted, and I think that's something that's really powerful about Maison is that like you can be both. Like you can be powerful as hell, but also be like soft and, have that nurturing like moment as like a mother. And not to say we're just for moms, but just to give you like that example of like the safety in the room.
Yeah, and there's so many places. I think our like theme of everything is you can be many things, like you don't need to fit into some label because there's also so many other events and things that like have it all, like the amazing pop-ups, like the beautiful aesthetics, whatever, but then they're missing the depth.
Yeah.
And for us it was really important, that we were very experiential, very sensory driven, but depth at all costs. Like the depth and the impact piece is always what we start with, actually. Yeah. And then we find the venue and everything else that matches, what we're looking to bring into the event. And then we find, like people that we want to welcome into the community to come speak to our members or to come, even share their brands. Like, so for brand partners, right? Because we know that we're creating something that is, that's going to have like multiple touch points and things in our members' experience. And so it's really important that we truly are master curators of just everything from A to Z as it relates to Maison. And on that note too, I think why it's so cool that we built our own platform and we built our own technology and that we're doing it on our own, like now we're just reinvesting back into Maison and we have taken no outside funding. It's because we're able to move so fast and we listen to our members intently. We ask every single person for feedback all the time about everything, just the platform experience, the event experience, the programming experience, like just everything. And if they say, oh, I think this feature might be great, or I'm in a season, where I'm expanding as a leader and I want more like leadership conversations or leadership training, we will make it happen. We have no red tape. Like the red tape is me and Hannah, and we're crazy. Like there's nothing, we want Maison, which literally translates to home, to be the sanctuary for women at this level. Like we want this to be the space. Like you don't have to go anywhere else. You want to learn about AI? You're learning the latest and greatest shit about AI inside of Maison. You want to expand your leadership? We will bring in the best leadership team coach and give you that, right? It's like there's just nothing, that we're not willing to do for our member experience because we're not answering to anyone but ourselves and what our ultimate goal is, which is that member fulfillment, right? Where like other environments that you go into, you start to feel eventually you're like, wait a minute, I'm just a number here. Like I'm just
a number.
I'm just a quota.
Yeah.
I'm just, I'm just something that needs to fulfill an investor deck, right? It's like, we don't have that. Like our objective is literally like powering up this female founder so that we can make change because we only have each other.
Yeah. And I think that's something that's really important about Maison specifically. And just like to close this out too, we also listen to our members like every single day. We know, and we jokingly say this, but we really do mean this. Like we know exactly what is happening with every single member in our network because we talk about it all the time. Like we meet with our head of program. We know, okay, this member needs this introduction. This member is struggling here. This member needs this. And it's those small like surprises and delights that I think like really make the experience of like when you can marry like a 4 seasons environment in an online world, like you've cracked the code. And that's something that I think, a lot of communities and just networks in general overlook, right? Because we're so focused on growth and volume and, like just like more that we're not focusing on like the little things, which is like people just want to feel seen and heard. They need, that support. And whether it's like, okay, this person needs an introduction to XYZ, or this person's going through a divorce and they need someone else that can help support them or has been through that. It's like those small moments that really like will create that buy-in also, where it's not just like you feeding the community. Now the community is feeding itself. And that's when you have a highly engaged network is when like they are the ones feeding the conversations.
And I will say we have gotten some haters.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh, like which again, it's like, please come for us. Like,
Mhm.
okay, like you want this heat, that's fine. But we have already faced, people being like, oh, well, it seems elitist. Or why is it, just 7 to 9 figure founders, blah, blah, blah. And there's already a lot of environments out there when you are scaling your business. We had created those programs ourselves, right? And so, however, once you got there, once you hit the 7 figures, where were you going? What were you doing after
Yeah.
that? Where were you being supported? Right? It's like, oh, you had to go into $100,000 mastermind to still get more tactics about your business, right? But maybe what you were thinking about was licensing, your IP. Or maybe the support that you needed is, oh, you want to get on TV. Does anyone, like
Yeah.
know someone that can connect you, right? We wanted to solve for connection, deeper, more meaningful connection, right? Like when men network, they will just say like, oh, I need this, and now let's go play golf, right? Like they're not afraid to just ask for what they need. However, as women, we tend to think that we need to give first and then
Mhm.
ask. And we wanted to also change that.
Yeah.
Right? Where it's like, what is it that you need? Let's ask that from the top and we will facilitate, those connections for you. And now we leverage technology to do that, right? Where it's like, we know all of this information about our members and we're able to leverage the technology to connect them to each other, connect them to opportunities, connect them when they're at events, etc. And so it's like also that piece of it, of solving for this problem that was being overlooked, right? It wasn't being solved for. And then the beauty that comes from that is that people can just show up wholly as themselves, right? Because now they're not like ashamed for needing help and support because they know that they have, a group of people that genuinely care about making those connections and those networks happen. And I that networking happen. And I feel like I needed to say that and give that distinction because we're so often asked, well, like, what's the difference and why this and why that, right? It's the problems are just different.
Mhm.
Like you get to a point where like you don't need an email marketer, you don't need it to know about another funnel, you don't
Mhm.
need like a webinar script. It's like you've got that, or you have a team, or like that's just a quick review that one of your peers can give you. It's like you're ready for like other stuff. We're that other stuff.
I love that. And I think I'd like to close this, if you're thinking of incorporating community, building a community, refining your community, I think it really comes down to like, what's your vision? What problem are you solving? Like, we're so clear in the problem that we're solving for women at this level, and just own it, I think, at the end of the day. And whether you get feedback, like the backlash that we've gotten, you just have to stay along that vision and that path, and just keep refining over time and don't sacrifice values.
Mhm. I love
So,
that. So beautiful. Thank you once again for joining us for this episode. Don't forget to connect with us on Instagram at Join Maison and see you next time.